Hi, this is Dia Damson, and today I am going to paint a pumpkin into pumpkins. So I already pre-sketched it. It's kind of like an oval, and then everything else around it's partial pumpkin. So there's a lot of lines, and a lot of the times I kind of guessed like what's gonna happen. But go and take a picture from a pumpkin box in your local store, and you can even, of course, be gentle with the pumpkins there, and you can position them the way you want them, and then take pictures and kind of paint from that. This one I call the ugly duckling because it's one green pumpkin and the rest of the pumpkins are orange. So the green pumpkin, it's much smaller, sitting on top of a big pumpkin, which is really hard to actually see. But that's what's going on. But the most important thing is our ugly duckling. I'm using green and yellow, and the color, honestly, it's not that important. I will pause the colors that I'm using, but you can use your greens that you like and your yellows that you like, so it's not that critical. I am just outlining with the darker green and a little bit of brown in my green, and just putting little lines here and there. It's not that big of a deal. Just make sure you add in your shadows, that's all. I'm gonna start filling in with a little bit more yellow. Now the light is kind of almost on the top of the pumpkin, but if you see right around the stem, I added shadow because it's indented, it goes down. So this is kind of the reasoning, and the illusion that it's creating. It still has shadows even on the top, and let's add this shadowy areas on the pumpkin right underneath. But on the end, those pumpkins are not important, not as important as our green pumpkins. So, and the technique is absolutely the same. You can make a purple pumpkin and pretty much use the same technique. You want the darker ones to be inside your lines and the indent of the pumpkin, and then the rest lighter. So the areas that are closer to the light, leave them almost white. And I'm using reds and yellows and orange. And some pumpkins are sideways and some pumpkins are upside down. But especially in October, you can take great photos of pumpkins in the stores. So, and if you see the little black spots that I filled in, this is kind of like the super shadow. These are holes. There is more pumpkins underneath, but they are in a super shadow. So those holes are kind of black and blue, and it's not just one color. So don't make them just black or just blue. Still create kind of an element inside. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be able to read it, but if you give it more than just one or two colors, it's going to make it more interesting. So I'm gonna fill in the rest of the orange pumpkins so they can dry. And in meantime, our green pumpkin's gonna be drying, and then I'm gonna be ready to play with it. So I'm gonna repeat absolutely everything all the way around. I'm getting a little darker colors, just changing the orange a little bit so it's not all the same, because not all pumpkins are the same. I will not leave this one that dark. It's gonna get much brighter, but that's gonna be my shadow for that pumpkin, so don't worry about it. We are only going to have one green pumpkin. So sometimes giving our yellows and orange a little bit of a brown or green will help make them look slightly different, because the pumpkins are not all perfectly the same. There's a little more shadow. And since I like that color, I'm just gonna go around and just touch up everything with that color a little bit. So it's kind of like marrying the whole picture together. Okay, so the stem is pretty much brown with a little bit of black. You can add a little bit of blue too. Um, and just when you are making the stem, add those lines, because the stem is not a smooth stem. It has crevices. So just add a few lines here and there to make it look more realistic. So I like to bounce around the painting and just touch different areas. I don't like to concentrate on one thing for too long. I like to rest from thing to thing and go around. A little bit of the black. With my brush is not really clean, so it's mixing with whatever colors, but I'm just adding a little slight dots here and there. And I'm not going, if you look at the painting on the upper right corner, you're gonna see how much darker that looks. So it's, for me, layering and layering, it seems to work much better than going straight to where I think we should be, because I like to progress, I guess, slower. And sometimes I might like the painting somewhere in the middle, not all the way to where I think I want it to go. So I'm giving myself a chance to be looking at the progress slowly. So this is blue with some green. I'm adding a little bit of white. So the white in our watercolor paint, it will not really be white. It just kind of gives almost like a curtain or a hue over our colors, a little bit of a foggy look, and it makes it kind of cool. If you like to leave a really nice highlight, that pretty much has to be planned and left alone, because once you fill in with the watercolor, it will be really hard to take it off. If you use a really heavy weight paper, you might be able to use tiny bit of sandpaper and sand it, but I experiment with that before you ruin something you really, really like. So it could work, also it could ruin your whole painting, so be careful with that. I am not afraid not to leave white areas, but I try to just leave a spot or something somewhere, but I usually try to fill in my areas. Even if it's barely visible, it's going to be filled in. But watercolor is a lot of fun. I was painting on that book the whole day, so, and kind of like all the previous pages, I think that one was number 7, were in the same spot. So I start feeling like all the canvases underneath, the paper underneath was getting wet too. So I had this piece of transparent paper kind of keeping away the wet from the next pages. So all right, so more and more layers, and I love putting like an outline on my watercolors. Sometimes I feel like it looks great on the original, but when I'm scanning my images, I usually crop that one out because it looks great on the original, but when it's scanned and you're putting it on a card, it doesn't look so perfect. So it's kind of one of those things that I put it in, but then I take it off later if I have to print. All right, so let's touch up a little bit on the stem, few lines here and there. Just very light brown, and then the rest I'm just using a wet brush, and it's a transparent brown. But again, it's like I'm using a lot of spots, so it's not a clean brush strokes, but it's a lot of texture, a lot of spots, a lot of brush strokes, and a little bit more color on one side of the stem, on the darker side, and use a little bit of the white, and I think pretty much that's going to be it. And thanks for watching. I hope you like this tutorial, this fast tutorial on a ugly pumpkin, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think. All right, have a good day.